And these ahadith range from different topics. And essentially, we're going through each hadith, and then I'm giving commentary on the hadith, and we're like essentially extracting lessons from it. Now, of course, when giving the comments, I have to have some kind of reference, some kind of source, right? So the source I'm using for this lecture specifically is Jami' al-Ulumi wal-Hikam by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah. So he actually took those 42 ahadith and then added 8 more on top of it, and then gave an explanation of every single hadith. And he's from the classical Hanbali scholars. So that's my source, obviously, for the session. And then other than that, the structure is just pretty basic. So every single week will come, I'll read the hadith, and then I'll go line by line and give, explanation or commentary in lessons we can learn from this, inshallah. And then finally, it'll be a quick 25, maybe like the hadith today is actually much longer. So it might take 30 minutes to get through the whole hadith. And then after that, we'll open up for Q&A, discussions, whatever you guys want, inshallah. So we'll go ahead and start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من نفس عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة ومن يسر على معسر يسر الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة ومن ستر مسلما ستره الله في الدنيا والآخرة والله في عون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه ومن سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة وما اجتمع قوم في بيت من بيوت الله يتلون كتاب الله ويتدارسونه فيما بينهم إلا نزلت عليهم السكينة وغشيتهم الرحمة وحفتهم الملائكة وذكرهم الله في من عنده ومن بطأ به عمله لم يسرع به نسبه رواه مسلم بهذا اللفظ. So on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, whoever removes a worldly grief from a believer, Allah will remove from him one of the griefs of the day of resurrection. And whoever alleviates the need of a needy person, Allah will alleviate his needs in this world and the hereafter. Whoever shields or hides the misdeeds of a Muslim, Allah will shield him in this world and the hereafter. And Allah will aid his slave so long as he aids his brother. And whoever follows a path to seek knowledge therein, Allah will make easy for him a path to paradise. No people gather together in one of the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and studying it among themselves, except that sakina, tranquility, descends upon them, and mercy envelops them, and the angels surround them, and Allah mentions them amongst those who are with him. And whoever is slowed down by his actions will not be hastened forward by his lineage. And this is in Sahih Muslim. Now, to start with the first part of the hadith is من نفس عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. So essentially Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying that whoever is essentially relieves another Muslim, another believer, a kurba, and we'll get into the actual definition of kurba, but some kind of distress, right? From the distress of this dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, the word here is nafasa, which means actually to let the person breathe, will give that person the ability to breathe Yawm al-Qiyamah, essentially remove his distresses on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment. And this is impactful for a very, very important reason that Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah actually mentions in his explanation. He says, al-jaza'u min jins al-amal, meaning that the reward you receive for a certain action is actually, it's ratio or is proportionate to the actual action you do. So if the action that I do is relieving someone from a kurba, and we'll get into the definition of it, a kurba is هي شدة عظيمة. So it's a great, deep distress. So it's not just something that happens maybe every single day or every other day or once a month or once a year. It's a deep, deep, deep distress. Like a big, big, big problem for someone. So whoever relieves a believer of that and helps them out in this dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help him and remove distress from him in the akhirah, on the Day of Judgment. So imagine me helping another Muslim in this dunya, the reward I get for it is the same level. Again, it's the same word. قُرْبَةً مِنْ قُرْبِ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. that one of the distresses among the many distresses that will come with Yawm al-Qiyamah on the Day of Judgment, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah will relieve you of that. So this is a very, very important point, that we should always be quick. We should always be looking for opportunities to help other Muslims, and we should look for the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, the more we help, the bigger distress we solve or we help that person with, then inshallah the bigger the reward on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then next, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَمَنْ يَسَّرَ عَلَى مُعْسِرٍ يَسَّرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. And whoever helps or makes easy, taysir is to make something easy. So whoever helps someone who's having a hard time, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make easy for him in this dunya and the akhirah. And to give some examples to understand this, if someone is in debt to you, for example, and this person owes you a certain amount of money, and it's been well past the time that he was supposed to pay you back, and he's saying, oh, I'm struggling because of 1, 2, 3 factors, and I can't gather the money that I owe you. From the meaning of this hadith is to say, you know what, look, I forgive you for that debt, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So making easy for him his hard time, in return, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make easy for you your hard time, not just in this dunya, but it also says in the akhirah. So look at how merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. That me helping someone in a distress in this dunya is going to help me in my akhirah, in my Day of Judgment. And then, if I make easy someone's life in this dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easier my life in the dunya and the akhirah. So we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinite in His mercy and His bounty. Now, the next part, وَمَنْ سَتَرَ مُسْلِمًا سَتَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Now, satar or satara is to cover. So like literally means to clothe someone. But in this context, it's saying whoever hides the misdeeds or the sins of another Muslim, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and again, notice the same trend, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hide his sins in this dunya and in the akhirah. So in this dunya, the people won't see your sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hide them for you, and on the Day of Judgment, you won't be held accountable for those, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. And now, there's also another important point to understand when discussing this specific topic, that a Muslim is said to be mastur, meaning covered, if his sins are not public. If his sins are not public. So for example, if I'm sitting out somewhere publicly, and I know other people are seeing me, and I'm sitting on purpose, then I'm not mastur. And the word for that would be, غير mastur, right? Now, if someone is mastur, meaning he is covered, that means that he hides his sins and they only happen in private. So the understanding of the hadith, the correct understanding, is not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover you or stop you from sinning, the idea of sinning. No, every son of Adam in the hadith, every son of Adam is a sinner, but the best of sinners is the ones who return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make tawbah. So you will continue to sin for the rest of your life, 100%. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that if you cover the sins of another Muslim, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover your sins in this dunya and in the akhirah. And now, I want to get into the explanation for this part. I'll directly quote from Ibn Rajab Hanbali. So he essentially describes two types of people. So he categorizes people in this subject into two categories. أحدهما من كان مستورا لا يعرف بشيء من المعاصي فإذا وقعت منه هفوة أو زلة فإنه لا يجوز كشفها. So whoever is mastur, meaning we don't know from him any ma'asi, any sins. We don't see him publicly sinning. So think to yourself, for people that you know who you don't ever see them sinning. Obviously, because he's human, he definitely sins. Now, just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean he doesn't sin, right? So this person is mastur, meaning لا يعرف بشيء من المعاصي. فإذا وقعت منه هفوة أو زلة فإنه لا يجوز كشفها ولا هتكها ولا التحدث بها لأن ذلك غيبة محرمة. And now, if this person forgets or makes a mistake or falls into a sin, it is not allowed. It is haram. It is not allowed to expose it. It's not allowed to share it with the people. It's not allowed to spread it and talk about it. And the reason why is because this is actually ghiba, meaning this is backbiting. And we know how severe the punishment of backbiting is in Islam. It's as if you're eating your own brother's flesh in the ayah. وَهَذَا هُوَ الَّذِي وُرِدَتْ فِيهِ النُّصُوص. And this is the meaning that the text, meaning the Quran and Sunnah, have talked about. وَفِي ذَلِكَ قَدْ قَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. And in this context, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the following ayah: إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُحِبُّونَ أَن تَشِيعَ الْفَاحِشَةُ فِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Now, notice the choice of ayah that is chosen here. Obviously, we have the ayah from Surah Al-Hujurat that talks about ghiba, talks about backbiting specifically, right? But the ayah that also addresses this topic is, verily, those who love to see al-fahisha, meaning things that Islam hates, that are very, very bad, sins, and fahisha, it's open sins in public and society that ruin society. It's degradation, essentially. So it's like a harsher word for sins. And tashii' al-fahisha, that they love to see fahisha spread among society. فِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And specifically, not just in general society, but in the people who believed. People who are good Muslims. Imagine someone who comes in his head, and he loves to see a good Muslim. He sees someone, he's like, man, this guy's a good Muslim. I don't see him do anything, very, very wrong. I want to see him fall into something wrong like fahisha. فِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Then they have a painful punishment in this dunya and in the akhirah. So the point again is that someone who's mastur, this first type of person, his sins are covered, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has covered his sins, it is not allowed for me to come and uncover his sins. And that would make me fall under this ayah, essentially. وَلِيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ. And then he essentially explains وَالْمُرَاد, the meaning of this ayah: إِشَاعَةُ الْفَاحِشَةِ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ المؤمن المستتر فيما وقع منه أو اتهم به وهو بريء منه. And this is again talking about a mu'min, a believer who is covered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His sins are covered. And or another situation where he was accused of a sin, but he didn't do it. So he was accused, but he didn't actually do it, and he has nothing to do with that sin at all. Then it's not allowed to spread, obviously, rumors and talk about that. And again, that's because the context of the ayah is in Surah An-Nur, where there's a story where Aisha radiallahu anha was accused of a certain sin. So it's in that same context. Now, the second type of person, and this is also very important, وَالثَّانِي مَنْ كَانَ مُشْتَهِرًا بِالْمَعَاصِي. Someone who is very well known. Mashhur is like famous. So someone who is very well known, who is famous for ma'asi, for disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مُعْلِنًا بِهَا لَا يُبَالِي مَرْتَكَبَ مِنْهَا. Mu'linan is someone who announces it. He announces his sins, he doesn't care, and he does not care at all about announcing those sins. وَلَا بِمَا قِيلَ لَهُ فَهَذَا هُوَ الْفَاجِرُ الْمُعْلِنُ. And he does not care what is said to him, obviously, to stop doing that sin. Therefore, then, this second type of person, he is al-fajr al-mu'lin. Fajr is someone who is in a deep state of sin. Someone who sins, and he doesn't care, he does it publicly, he doesn't care who sees it, he has he doesn't show any regret for it. And this is al-fajr al-mu'lin. Al-mu'lin is someone who he has, again, outwardly shown it, and he says it to the people. If we take the root word i'lan is like a news, or it's like an announcement. Someone who announces the sins. وَلَيْسَ لَهُ غِيبَةٌ. And notice these three words. وَلَيْسَ لَهُ غِيبَةٌ. And for this person, ghiba, backbiting, does not apply to him. Imagine. So this person who spreads his sins openly, backbiting doesn't apply to him. If I'm talking and saying, oh look, he's doing 1, 2, 3, this does not mean it's ghiba. كما نص على ذلك الحسن البصري. And this is what Al-Hasan al-Basri, one of the tabi'in, what he said, وغيره, and others from the tabi'in. ومثل هذا لا بأس بالحديث عن أمره. And for someone like this, there is no wrong. It's completely okay to talk about what he's doing. لتقام عليه الحدود. And this is probably the most important point of this quote. The reason why is لتقام عليه الحدود. is so that the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the punishments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can be applied upon him. Now obviously in this current state, we don't have an Islamic society or an Islamic state that implements the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we can go and apply the hudud on alcohol, or apply the hudud on someone who is doing zina, etc. So in this current context, we have to understand that the reason why Islam allows you to talk about this stuff openly when someone is announcing his sins and he doesn't care, is because Islam, it aims to create a society that pushes evil out and only lets the good in. And if any evil stays in the society, that someone is consistently sticking to that evil, even though he's been reminded, he's been told, he's been shown that it's something bad, then Islam suppresses it at least to the private realm. At least keep it in your house. If you want to do 1, 2, 3, keep it in your house. So the point is that if we imagine that we're living in an Islamic society and someone is committing big haram outside and no one can talk about it or say anything wrong. Why? Because, this is backbiting. Then this person would be allowed to continue doing what he's doing, and he's degrading society. So the point of this, again, it's like a damage control in that sense. And again, this is like we can go more deep into this topic of how Islam solves these issues in society, of essentially the spreading of sins or the spreading of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and keeps a society that's morally ethical, and keeps a society that functions in a pure way. Next, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَاللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the side, or is with the slave, the abd, meaning us, because all of us are slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. And this is a very simple, very deep statement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us as long as we are with and on the side of our brother. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us as long as we are helping our brothers and sisters. And again, like I said in the past, and we'll repeat it over here again, a lot of these ahadith, we think of very immediate examples, right? Like, for example, if I'm helping someone on an individual level, like if I'm helping someone, for example, learn to pray, or helping someone with his homework, right? We think on an individual level. We have to understand these ahadith also apply on a collective level, right? So there's an individual and collective. So if I'm helping my brothers and sisters in teaching salah, or I'm helping them in finding a masjid, or I'm helping my brothers and sisters in Gaza, all of this falls under this hadith. And notice the hadith does not say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the awn of the abd if he helps some of his brothers, or he helps one of his brothers or two of his brothers. It says fi auni akhi, all of them. It is general. So I can't say, you know what, I'll help my brothers from Jordan. I'm Jordanian, right? I'll help my brothers from Jordan only, but if you're from other than Jordan, then that's tough. So that's something that Islam doesn't allow. The hadith is talking about all of your brothers and sisters in Islam, whether it's Jordanian, whether it's any ethnicity, whether they're in America or outside America. So if we think about that on a deeper level, we have to continuously be doing and thinking about the people in Gaza, and thinking about what can I do for them. And this is part of this hadith. And there's another hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Irham man fil ardi, yarhamukum man fis sama." Have mercy on those who are on the ground, those who are in this dunya, yarhamukum man fis sama. And the person who is in the skies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will have mercy upon you. So imagine the amount of ajr, the amount of good deeds, the amount of good that comes from helping your brothers and sisters, whether it's here or abroad. وَمَنْ سَلَكَ طَرِيقًا يَلْتَمِسُ فِيهِ عِلْمًا سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. Whoever takes a path or starts on a path, يَلْتَمِسُ فِيهِ عِلْمًا, in his seeking knowledge, in this context seeking knowledge in deen, سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make very easy for him, with this knowledge, a path to Jannah. Now again, also, the point of these sessions is not just to read the hadith and then just to understand it and have a theoretical understanding and to move on, but really look at how can I apply this in my life. The hadith is showing us how important knowledge is. And notice, سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hadith doesn't say سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make easy for him a path to Jannah because he sought knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make a path easy for him to Jannah using this knowledge. So it's showing the importance of knowledge in deen. That knowledge in deen is not sought for me to just learn and then show off to the people and then have a theoretical understanding. I can understand aqidah on a very theoretical level. I can quote to you this scholar said this, he said this on issues that have absolutely nothing to do with anything in reality. Nothing. It's just arguments that happened in the past. And I continue to memorize and I learn this knowledge for the sake of what? Just so I know. This isn't the type of knowledge that's ilm al-nafi'. In a famous dua, obviously we all say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can you give us ilm al-nafi', knowledge that is beneficial and actions that are good? وَشِفَاءً مِنْ كُلِّ دَاءٍ. The reason why we specify ilm al-nafi' in this dua, and of course this hadith is saying the same thing, is because we don't seek knowledge just to have the knowledge and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us this path to Jannah. No, it's with this knowledge, this beneficial knowledge, that I can get this path to Jannah. I'll use it to make a path to Jannah. And in another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, and this is to emphasize the role of ulama, is to emphasize the role of having knowledge and importance of having knowledge in deen. إن مثل العلماء في الأرض كمثل النجوم في السماء يهتدى بها في ظلمات البر والبحر فإذا انطمست النجوم أوشك أن تضل الهدى. The example of scholars on earth is like the stars in the sky. Guidance is sought by them in the darkness of land and sea. If the stars are dimmed, those who are guided are almost about to go astray. So the consequence of a lack of knowledge, the consequence of having a lack of ulama who teach the people, who teach the knowledge of deen, is that the people themselves will go astray. And notice, the analogy is that these scholars are like stars. And why stars specifically? Because people used to use them to find direction, right? So people look to them for direction. They look to them, which path takes me to Jannah? If these stars are dimmed, meaning these stars stop speaking up, these stars begin to hide aspects of religion, these stars begin to fear the consequences of oppressive rulers or consequences in this dunya, then those stars are dimming, and with it, their guidance is almost gone, and the people are going astray. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إن الله لا يقبض العلم انتزاعا ينتزعه من الناس ولكن يقبض العلم يقبض العلماء بقبض العلماء فإذا لم يبق علما اتخذ الناس رؤساء جهالا فسئلوا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not take away knowledge by snatching it from people, but He takes it away by taking away the lives of the religious scholars till none of the scholars stay alive. Then the people will take ignorant ones as their leaders, who, when asked to deliver religious verdicts, fatwa, will issue them without knowledge, and the result will be that they will go astray and they will lead others astray with them. Look at the term. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, ru'asa and juhala. That these are leaders, people who are the heads of the ru'asa is the head, like aras is a head, right? Ru'asa is the heads of their people. So the leaders of their people, juhalan, ignorant, right? So this is just a couple of hadith on the importance of knowledge in Islam and the importance and the heaviness actually of the burden on the people who have this knowledge in Islam in speaking the truth. And in this context, I want to read a quote that also in the commentary of Jami' al-Hikam, Ibn Rajab mentions that قال الحسن العلم علمان, that there are two types of knowledge, and we spoke about this a little bit before. علم على اللسان, knowledge that is on the tongue. فذاك حجة الله على ابن آدم. Look how deep this quote is. There is knowledge on the tongue, and that is the evidence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against you. وعلم في القلب, in knowledge that is in the heart. فذاك العلم النافع, in knowledge that is in the heart, and that is knowledge that is actually beneficial. The ilm nafi' we spoke about before. So notice how, just imagine, you're a scholar, you learn all this knowledge, and you have voluminous knowledge of Islam, volumes and volumes and volumes you studied. Imagine, in you just making the decision to not speak the truth, to not spread the ilm, to not actually benefit from this knowledge and benefit the people with this knowledge. All of those volumes are in evidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will quote against you on the Day of Judgment. Imagine. And this doesn't just apply to scholars. This applies to everyone. It's general. So Rasulullah says, "Ballighu anni walau ayah," that spread from me or convey from me, even if it is just one ayah. So if I have the knowledge of this ayah and it's on my tongue, but I don't apply it in my life and spread it, then there's an issue. So we have to review within ourselves, and not just within ourselves, but hold others accountable. That we need to teach Islam within our capacity, of course, and spread it as much as we can. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us from those who benefit from our knowledge, and not the ones whose knowledge will come as a hujjah or an evidence against us, inshallah. And finally, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَمَنْ اجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ يَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ فِي مَا بَيْنَهُمْ إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ وَغَشِيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةُ وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِنْدَهُ. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says essentially that any people who come together in a house of the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ فِي مَا بَيْنَهُمْ, and they study it and they try to learn from it together, like in a halaqah style, إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send upon them sakina, is tranquility on their hearts. وَغَشِيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةُ, and mercy will fall upon them and cover them. وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ, and the angels are there with them remembering, praising them for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِنْدَهُ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have the ones who are next to him, the ones who are around him, remembering those people. And the point is to encourage the virtue of gatherings where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, where the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala occurs, and especially the Quran. And not just reciting the Quran, but itadarasunahu, meaning it's studying. Actually, if you take a direct translation, studying the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are very, very, very important things that we need to, at the very minimum, have at least one time a week. Imagine if you just put an hour or 2 hours a week, just one consistent time. This is time I will 100% go in, whether it's read Quran, learn Quran, or learn Islam in general. That's the bare minimum we can do. And you'll see great benefits, inshallah, over the years when you keep that consistent standard. And then finally, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, at the end of the hadith, وَمَنْ بَطَّأَ بِهِ عَمَلُهُ لَمْ يُسْرِعْ بِهِ نَسَبُهُ. وَمَنْ بَطَّأَ is whoever is slowed down, bihi amalu, his actions slow him down, lam yusri' bihi nasabuh, his lineage or his tribe or his family is not gonna make him go faster. The point is, on the Day of Judgment, when you're trying to elevate in your ranks in Jannah, if my actions are slowing me down, meaning I did bad deeds and I didn't do enough good deeds in this dunya, that my actions are dragging me lower and lower and lower, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reminding us that your nasab, your lineage, your family, your tribe, you might have thought you were part of a big family and you were a leader of your people or the best of your people, this lineage is not going to make you go higher or faster on Day of Judgment at all. Nothing. It will not elevate your ranks. It will not make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look at you differently or forgive you. Your lineage has absolutely nothing. Nothing to do with speeding up and elevating your ranks in Jannah. So it's only your actions. And this is a very, very important point. We have to remind ourselves about the idea of nationalism. How nationalism is not something that Islam allows someone to carry as an idea. To carry the idea that because I'm Arab or because I'm Pakistani, that I'm better than someone else. It's an idea that Islam completely uprooted and does not allow someone to have in their heart. It's not allowed. Iman in nationalism cannot gather in one heart. They can't. Because like I said before in the Hadith, when it talks about helping your brother and your sister, it's not helping your brother and sister who is part of the same nation as you or part of the same lineage as you. It's every Muslim. So Islam creates a community, it creates an ummah, it creates one nation that's united upon Tawheed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وجزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.